Today we're going to talk about General Data Protection Regulation, more commonly known as GDPR. That's going to come into force on May the 25th, 2018. And the regulation actually is a compliance regime that basically states that all of your businesses out there that collects data from EU residents that you've sold services to needs to be structured in a format that you can actually present the user with their data at any time in the right format. The data that we're talking about is personal identifiable information. That could be anything from national insurance numbers, date of birth, scans of passports, names, addresses. In fact, there are 88 variables that you need to consider of data that might be on your system that you need to have readily available. So think about this. If you've actually captured this data at any time and it's on perhaps your employees' phones, phablets, iPads, Surfaces, laptops, PCs, it might even be in Dropbox, or it might be OneDrive, it might be any of these online stores, Google Drives. Think about all that data you've collected over the years that could be dispersed across your network. It might also be on your servers or NAS devices. So when you start to think about that, over the years you've probably amassed a heck of a lot of personal identifiable information. Our first stage of consultancy that we would do with you is called Collect. And what that simply does is it goes and collects all the data from all of those endpoints. It sends out crawlers. So it's very, very clever software that goes out and collects all the data that only is relating to the personal identifiable information. And it gathers it into a store. It also goes to all the servers. So there's a two-phased approach, the endpoints and then the servers, and it brings it back and pulls it into a nice store of information. And that is the first part of getting you regulated and ready for this compliance. Stage one, collect. The second stage, once you've collected all of that personal identifiable information, is to index all of that data, meta tag all that data, make sure that all the trivial data is excluded, and only really important 88 variable sets of data are collected into a structured data set that's indexed and meta tagged. The next stage is to actually present that into either a store that can be easily accessed and searched upon. So one would be a great example, SharePoint. So you can surface it into SharePoint, your data, and make sure that it's all meta tagged in the right way and searchable. You might also find that there's a lot of older data that you think is archivable, and we can archive that to Microsoft Azure and index that as well there. So that is easily searchable. So that next stage is really about taking all that data that you've collected and then surfacing it, presenting it into a system that you can easily search upon. The third stage that you need to consider, once you've actually collected all of your data from all of the endpoints and the servers, and once you've then presented it into a searchable format, so whether that's SharePoint or Microsoft Azure that's indexed and meta tagged, that is absolutely fantastic. You still need processes internally that enable you to, if somebody comes knocking on the door saying, I'm an EU resident, you sold me some data, you sold me some service a while ago, I need my data back. You need to present that data to them, so you need to search your devices and present it to them and delete it off your system, and you need to prove to them that it is all logged and catalogued and it's deleted and sent back to them in a certain format. We do expect the ICO to present this format to us 1 or 2 months before the actual date comes up, but for now consider all of those variables of data relating to that person. You'll need to present it back, probably in a CSV file, and then present them with a certificate and a sign off saying it's been deleted off your system. So that is the first thing. The next thing, as part of this third phase, is to ensure that you are secure in your network. And this really is actually the most important, because if somebody got in, if somebody hacked into your system and then they collected the data, and then you couldn't prove to the ICO, which is the Information Commissioner's Office, who dish out all the fines, that you are not compliant and have all the systems that are protecting yourself with all of that data, then you're going to get fined. So the key thing then really is to make sure you've got the right endpoint security in place, the right firewalls in place, the right systems that control of your applications on your network. So it would be great firewalling, it would be something like enterprise mobility and security from Microsoft's Cloud Suite, which would protect your data and track all the emails so you know who it's going to. So it's not about just having a database, it's knowing where the data has got to and how you can have a track to delete that data and clear it off your system and prove that to the ICO or the end user. So securing your systems are really important. If you could imagine that they come knocking on your door and all your data's gone and they say to you, can you prove what data you had and where it went? The biggest issue would be if you said, I'm not sure it was on a hard drive or a NAS drive and we had no backup. Okay, so those are the things that are really important. The final part is actually considering if somebody comes knocking on the door asking for their data, you need to be able to easily retrieve that. But as well as this, think about your users and your staff members are adding GDPR data, if you want to call it, personal identifiable information to your system all the time. You need systems that control that and track it so that it brings it back to a central source and it adds it to your data repository that you can search upon. So once you've done your cleanup exercise, that's all well and good, but this is evolving all the time, and over the years, not just when the regulation kicks in, the ICO could come and regulate you or investigate you at any time, and you need to present that data to them and also the EU residents. So anytime somebody adds some personal identifiable information, whether it's a staff member, whether it's somebody that's bought something from you from the EU, that needs to be tracked and brought into that central repository. And we have systems that enable you to do that. So those are the key elements of the third stage of becoming general data protection regulated. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to know more actually about how we can help you with this, all you got to do is call us on 0800 148 8001, or you can email us at tellmemore@techquarters.com and we'll get straight back to you. Thanks a lot.